Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Anne-Sophie, I'm a knitter from Belgium, and this is everything I knit in 2024. So first off, I'm wearing, I thought this was cute for the occasion, the first proper sweater that I ever finished. Creative chaos is like the only proper way to describe what was going on when I just started knitting. But this is the first actual knitting pattern that I knit and followed. I'll stand up so you can see it a little better. This is my sweater number 8 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It's like a drop shoulder-esque raglan creation made with these increases on two sides of this pretty line and then just a very wide sleeve. Normally this is supposed to be a lot more fitted, but because I knit this in Drops Baby Merino held with Drops Kid Silk, it's off gauge, so a bit bigger than it should have been. And also just it grew a ton after blocking, which I love about this guy because it falls nice and flowy, nice and wide. I'm not usually a fan of superwash yarn, but especially for like a white garment that comes close to my neck, it's nice to be able to pop this in the wash, have it like cinch back to its original shape a little bit so that it can fall perfectly afterwards again. I do think I might knit this pattern again sometime in the future in a different neutral, and I will be using superwash again then for that. But yeah, I thought this was as good a day as any to wear my first ever sweater because we're going to be talking about an entire year of knitting, and also this is the 1-year anniversary of my YouTube channel. I can't believe I'm saying this. I still can't believe I started a YouTube channel and that it is relatively successful. I thought like 20 people would be watching each video. I was completely prepared to just do this for my own fun and as like a little creative outlet, but some of you do seem to appreciate what I've been making and putting out. So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to say that I'm very grateful, very excited, and if you're new here, I hope you like what you see and stick around, and if you've been here for a while, thanks for the support, I guess. Now, cheese aside, let's get into it. This year, I finished 27 projects, which is a bit less than last year. I think I had just over 30, but even though in number it seems similar, I believe I knit a lot more smaller items and less sweaters and cardigans than I did last year. Overall, I would say it was less productive. I had a bit of a tough year. I'm chronically ill, and those issues kind of hit their all-time peak for me this year. I was feeling down or tired or under the weather for several months, actually, of this year, and you can really notice it in my making. I'm very happy that I had this YouTube channel to kind of push me to keep things going and to kind of provide me with some positive reinforcement, I guess. So while I've produced a little less than I usually would when I'm having a good year, I guess, I'm still quite baffled with what I managed to create with the limited time that I spent creating compared to other years. I do think I knit more involved patterns at quite small gauges than I did last year, where I knit a lot of stockinette, and I think there's something to say for how that affected the amount of, well, garments that I ended up knitting in total. Let me just take my little knitting journal for a second. Wait, I made a new knitting journal, and this is my opening page. I noted everything down color-coded, so we're gonna stick with that today. I managed to do quite some gift knitting, not a lot compared to last year, but I knit 2/3 pairs of socks, 1 pair of gloves, 1 baby bonnet, and 2 sweaters as gift knits last year. And then in total, I knit 4 sweaters, 1 cardigan, 3 tees, 3 camisoles or tank tops, 3 pairs of socks, 2 pairs of gloves, 2 hats, 1 scarf, 1 skirt, 3 ornaments, 2 pieces of home decoration or home accessories, and then 1 baby bonnet. That is 27 knits total. I'm going to be talking through most of these with you, but skipping out on some of the smaller gift knits such as socks because those were just patterns and yarns that I use all the time. So if you're interested in those, go check out my earlier podcasts, I think from January and February. And I will be talking about the sweaters that I gift knitted just because I only have 4 finished sweaters, which I'm kind of shocked to realize, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, I'll be talking through those and adding in some footage and pictures that I have to show you what they ended up like. I'll be going through everything chronologically based on when I finished it. I must admit, I also have 13 whips still on and off needles lying around waiting for me to finish them. I think that's a lot. And I would like to change something about that. So I'm thinking of doing a second part to this video where I chat through all of the whips that I took with me into this new year. If you're interested in that, stay tuned because that will probably be my next video. And that said, let's just get into it. Let's start with what I knit in January. In January, I spent most of my month, as I will be doing this year, knitting a sweater for a colleague turned friend who's defending her PhD. So what I've been doing is, as a gift for my defending co-PhD students, I let them choose a pattern, and then if they pay for the yarn, I knit them the sweater. Last year, I knit a zipper sweater light for my colleague Finn, who chose that pattern from the Petite Knit website, and I used Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the color charcoal or dark gray melange. In any way, it's like an anthracite charcoal-y color. I knit the sweater a bit cropped and with a split hem, slightly off gauge, but I feel like it turned out perfectly. The drape is great. The sweater is a little bit warm, but I think for a zipper sweater that should be fine, and especially since the non-light version calls for Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool with the mohair, I think this one is still much lighter than the regular zipper sweater would have been. So instead of a DK, I ended up using the worsted weight yarn, but it turned out, I don't know, just fine. The fabric Filcolana Peruvian creates is so luxurious. I knit a sweater for my grandfather in it 2 years ago as well. I don't know, I love it. It's great. I did end up needing to take it back in because I was so silly as to not have her try it on before I finished it, and it turns out she has quite long arms, so I had to take it back and shorten the arms, which is where I learned that grafting and cutting out a piece of your knitwear is really not as hard as you could imagine it to be. I followed a tutorial that Amy from neknits shared after she did some, I think, sweater surgery on her Ollie sweater, and it worked perfectly. You end up just making one little cut in a stitch, undoing an entire row of stitches manually, and then especially if the garment has been blocked, the stitches just perfectly stay in place, so you can insert your needle, knit, or remove, as I also ended up doing later in May, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But so you can add or remove fabric, and then you graft things back together with Kitchener stitch. And I'll see if I can find the pictures that I took of this sweater to insert here. But you really can't notice that I had to do sweater surgery on this. You don't see where I added any length. I ended up grafting the ribbing back to the lengthened sleeve, and it fit perfectly after that. So strongly recommend doing sweater surgery and not reknitting the ribbing if you have too little or too much length on a garment. Yeah, can't believe how well that worked. Then in February, I was cranking out a sweater for my cousin, which was a textured sweater on 4mm needles. This took me most of the spring, especially since I was exhausted and ill and didn't feel like knitting very much. What I did end up finishing in February were just 2 little hats. The first hat I finished is this Oslo hat by Petite Knit. Let me just try it on. Ta-da! I wear this all the time. I kind of lost yarn chicken on this one, so the crown does look a little bit odd, but I don't mind too much. And I don't see the crown of my own head, so I don't even know if it fits weirdly or strangely when I'm wearing it, and I don't see that myself, so I really can't be bothered to care. But yeah, I think it is so cute. I think the color suits me perfectly. This is where you can see that I kind of lost yarn chicken because it like falls pretty straight, as most people do. I knit the brim, or not the brim, the body of the hat, I guess about 3 or 4 centimeters shorter than petite knit calls for in the pattern. And I think that looks and fits really great. I had to do it because of yarn chicken, but I will be doing it on all of my future Oslo hats. Yeah, it's a bit floppy because I used a fingering weight yarn held with a mohair, but I think I used 3.5mm needles instead of 3mm needles as the mohair edition of the pattern calls for, and that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that, but nonetheless, I think the floppy hat is pretty cozy. I'm just gonna put it on again. It's so nice. I think I might have knit a size too small, but because it's so floppy and big, it fits. So I guess that turned out pretty well for me in the end. The yarn I used is Filcolana Pernilla that I had left over, which is why I lost yarn chicken, from my elevation loop sweater that I finished in December of 2023. And I held it with a hand-dyed yarn, Abmeska Pegasus, that I bought at, I think it was the Handwerkbeurs, which is a yarn or fiber arts fair in my hometown that took place in November of 2023. It was this blue, gray, silverish, purple hand-dyed yarn that looked absolutely stunning, and I really wanted like 3 hanks of that yarn to use for a cumulus blouse, but I snatched the last one they had and it was just such a perfect color. I couldn't leave it, so I'm very glad that I did end up getting it and using it for a hat, because yeah, I wear this all the time. My plan for this winter is to knit more hats for myself because I really do need more and better winter accessories, and they're just so cute and so fun to knit, so I can't believe I only knit one functional hat last year, because the second thing I finished is the first thing I ever felted, which is a beret number 3, which is a beret number 3 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It is absolutely gorgeous. I fully copied Handmade by Florence, who made this I think also last year or the year prior, and she used Sandnesgarn Fritidsgarn in the light gray melange color, which ends up looking so pretty in the felted fabric. Look at that, that's just stunning. You can't see any of the knit stitches anymore except for maybe here around the edge. You knit just a huge floppy bit of fabric with an I-cord edge and a little I-cord noggin if you feel like it, and then you felt it in the washing machine. I just fully followed the instructions in the pattern, but I wasn't aware that you should add like a towel or something into the washing machine when you're felting something, and I think that may be why it ended up a bit too small. Let me try it on for you to show you. It fits, but it like, you see how I can like hardly even move my hair back in place because it's so tight. Feels like it's cutting off all blood circulation from my head, which is unfortunate because it's really a look. I think this is so cute. I love wearing berets. I wear them all the time, which is why I really hope this pattern would work for me, because I would have been knitting berets in every single color of the rainbow. But yeah, it's just pretty cute, but just much too tight for me. Wait, let me just do a little spin on my chair. Ta-da! Yeah, it's so cute. I love it so much, but it just doesn't fit it's way too small. I think I might try and soak it in water with some conditioner to see if I can stretch it, and maybe then I'll end up loving it. Yeah, it is very dense though. I don't know if you can, yeah, see, it's just super duper dense. I don't know if it's supposed to be that way. It's very thick as well. I think you knit this up on like 6mm needles. I'll insert a picture of me wearing the floppy thing before blocking, or before felching rather, so you can see how big that thing was. I do think I should really try and redo this pattern this year to see if I can make it work, but it is just a lot thicker than my other berets, which is why I don't reach for it, and well, I don't want to arrive at work with like a red stripe in my face. Both very excited and a bit bummed about this one. Then into March. In March, I finished this pair of penny gloves for myself. They are pretty worn. I wear them the entire winter and fall anytime it's cold. I wear them behind my desk when my hands get cold because of my ADHD medication. These have held up quite well for how much wear they've received over the past almost year. The tension of this yarn isn't great. It doesn't look super neat. It looks like almost as if it's never been blocked, but it is incredibly, incredibly soft. So I like that. I don't remember exactly what the yarn is called or what the specifications are, but I'll add them on the screen for you. I think it was the Lang Baby Cashmere. It contains, I think, merino with some cashmere in there, which makes these gloves the softest thing ever without having to break the bank for like a Cardiff cashmere or something. I should have like sized down my needles because these are quite big on me, quite chunky and pretty loose. Like if I move around my hand, I think you can see they're not very super duper fitted, especially like around here. If I wave or something, or if I flop, they like don't stay on perfectly. It is really cozy, but not super practical, especially if I'm like wearing my coat with this. I do have one coat with like an elasticized sleeve, which kind of keeps these bad boys in place. But yeah, aside from that, I could have done a bit of a better job on these. Nevertheless, I wear them and use them all the time, and the only places where they really have any pilling is on the little hand portions where there's quite a lot of friction, so especially like the thumb and this part. I really want to knit myself a pair of penny gloves, or maybe the gloves from the Vienna set in a proper cashmere, maybe next winter, but until then I'll be using these still because I really like them, and maybe I'll give them like a pretty hot little block to see if they go back and like cinch back in to their original slightly tighter size. In March, I also finished a sweater number 14 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Look at this. She is beautiful. Absolutely stunning. She has wide sleeves, 2x2 rib details, and I knit the V-neck version. I knit it quite cropped and without the split hem because I was losing yarn chicken, and I also just don't really think I like split hems too much for myself. But yeah, this is the softest, fluffiest, most cozy thing I own, and I absolutely love her. I knit this garment using wool met verve, the fingering weight sock yarn, just the wool in the color gazette. Gazette is French for newspaper. It kind of gives you like a newspapery print look, and I do think I should have alternated cakes because I had two, and the sleeves have like a bit of a striping effect. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, the sleeves have some striping. The bottom of the body has some striping, and well, the top portion doesn't because the yarn was just less stripy in the other cake. At first, I was like, I should frog this entire thing and reknit the entire sweater. And people told me I was being silly, and it looked fine and it looked beautiful. And I totally agree with them now because honestly, I don't really see it anymore when I wear it. I also wear it all the time. It's knit at a pretty big gauge because you hold it with 2 strands of mohair. I held 2 strands of Filcolana Tilia in the natural or raw white colorway. It's kind of like neutralized by the gray and the bluish and purplish tones in the hand-dyed yarn. Compared to this off-white from Drops, it looks pretty gray, which is why I think this white or creamy or neutral sweater suits me pretty well. I don't usually look good in whites or creams, or well, not that I look bad today, but I think I look better in cool and neutral tones, which you'll see a lot more of later on with my finished objects. And I think this one is, I don't know, like a perfect cream or white just because of the little hints of gray that it gives you and that it has in there. I thought this would be such a warm sweater, but I end up wearing it like a lot in the spring because I knit it in the spring and I thought this is so off season. But honestly, for Belgian spring weather, this guy was perfect. It's very floppy, so it's like quite hard to fold, but I try my best. I have no finished objects for April. I was traveling. I spent most of April in the US, in New York City, visiting my partner who was basically living there for most of spring. I guess I was busy visiting New York City, Boston, DC, doing all sorts of fun stuff and not knitting too much, which is good because my fingers needed a little bit of a break from knitting on my cousin's gift knit all spring. I knit the Storm Sweater Man for my cousin, which is the first thing I finished in May. It was knit in Drops Lima in the color khaki on 4mm needles, and it is an all-over textured sweater. The texture is created just with knits and purls, but I think because of the slightly smaller needle size or gauge and the inconsistency with which you switch between knits and purls, it was just so rough on my hands. I was also struggling with my illness, which gives me joint pain and everything, but still, I should have taken more breaks. I should have planned that sweater better. Yeah. I knit a Storm Sweater Man in this size extra large for a almost like 2 meter tall dude. When I was holding that sweater, when it was laying on my lap, it was just completely enveloping me. It was like a blanket. I still can't believe I did that and knit that. My partner just came home, so I had to go say hi, but where was I? Oh yeah, I used Drops yarn because it was actually my cousin's Christmas gift. I gave him a little swatch for Christmas, but the yarn had to fit within our Christmas gifting budget, and we give a lot of Christmas gifts to my family, so at this point in time, we don't have that much disposable income, so to fit the yarn within our budget, I generally tend to use Drops yarn. I don't usually go for Drops yarn because I prefer to spend money on more ethical yarns or more traceable yarns. And also, in my experience with Drops specifically, the quality is not super reliable with Drops yarn. From what I understand, Drops uses several different suppliers and they change things up a lot to ensure the cheapest possible yarn. I think it's so good that there's an affordable option out there for when you need it and for when I need it. But because of that, I feel like the quality tends to switch up sometimes. Sometimes you get just extremely great bang for your buck, and then at other times you kind of get what you pay for. So I prefer to use slightly more, I don't know, transparent brands and yarns when my budget allows for it, but so now it didn't. I tried out a few Drops yarns, but the one I like the most personally is Drops Flora Lima or Nepal, which is the Fingering DK and Aran version of their wool and alpaca blend yarn. It's so nice to work with. It's so soft. Thus far, I've used these yarns quite a lot and they've never really failed me in terms of quality. It's always just incredibly great bang for your buck. I'm aware that some alpaca fibers that can be imported cannot be cruelty free, so I do only use this yarn when I really need to, but if it would be like guaranteed to be cruelty free and like ethically produced, I would be using this yarn all of the time. I think it's one of my absolute favorites, and of course I used it for this sweater as well because it calls for a DK weight, so I used the Drops Lima. Before, I'd only really held these yarns with a mohair, and I think I will be doing so in the future, or like at least with a suri or something that has a silk core because this sweater, it grew so much after blocking. I just kept adding length to it when I was knitting it, and my cousin was trying it on because I had learned from my mistakes with the zipper sweater and I didn't want it to be too short. So I kept adding length, and then when I blocked it, it just grew, I think 2 or 3 sizes. So it ended up being way too big. I think my cousin rolls up his sleeves, but I did end up spending like almost all of our family weekend in May sitting on the floor surrounded by bits of yarn, cutting open the bottom of the body and then ripping out all of this fabric, grafting the ribbing back to the rest of the body. I don't know, I can't believe I spent so much time and so much hand pain knitting on this huge sweater that then turned out to be too huge. I thought I'd definitely share that about the yarn because for me in the future I will definitely be using Drops Lima or Flora or Nepal for the yarn base because I love it, and the color selection is also pretty great. But maybe I'll be holding it with a mohair, or I'll just be taking into account that this garment is going to grow quite a lot because the alpaca stretches, I don't know. Maybe the garment was also just so big that it got really heavy so that it was more extreme than what I could expect for like a sweater that I would knit for myself. If you guys have any experience with this yarn base from Drops and it growing or not, please let me know in the comments because I would love to be prepared for future endeavors. And that brings me to my last finished sweater of 2024. The last sweater I finished was actually also finished in May. That sweater is my Franky genser, which is a saddle shoulder contiguous raglan sweater from the Sandnes Garn Myk til Dame pattern booklet, or Soft for Women, from 2022, I believe. It was super popular when it came out. It contains patterns like this one and the Guernsey genser, the Amy slipover, what have you. And well, I managed to get my hands on it and I've been trying to get through the patterns ever since. This is the first one I knit from it. I love this one to death. I think this must be the thing I wore the most out of everything I knit last year. It's just too good. I used Sandnes Garn Koos. They have 2 different versions of the pattern at 2 different gauges. One for the Koos, which is a blown yarn, and one for, I think it's brushed alpaca or brushed alpaca. It does have an abundance of twisted knit stitches. Like, these hems are so long. They're so pretty though, but this took me a long time, and I'm quite certain also added to my hand and joint and wrist discomfort in the spring and the summer. The yarn I used perfectly matched the cherry blossoms in New York during the spring while I was there and knitting on this. So this sweater really truly holds a very important piece in my heart. I hope it will be wearing well and continue to wear well in the future, because honestly, for how much I've been wearing this guy has not pilled. I have never shaved this ever. It's just a blown yarn with, I think, a nylon corn with, I think, a nylon core and alpaca fibers blown throughout it, but it wears beautifully. The stitches don't knit up super duper evenly, but I really like the look of that, especially from farther away. It just looks handmade in the best way possible. This yoke is insanely deep, but for some reason it fits great. I was worried at first, especially I don't think there's short rows in this pattern, so I was really worried at first that it was gonna, I don't know, not fit me well, not wear well. I should have maybe added short rows, I don't know, but I don't think I should have. I think it looks great. The folded hem really does keep everything nice and structured, I feel. I don't think I've even added elastic into this one yet, and it hasn't even stretched that much. I add an elastic into nearly all of my knit garments, and this one doesn't really have one yet, I think. No, it doesn't feel like it, but it hasn't really stretched that much. That's great. Also, I think this is the ultimate color for anyone who is a soft summer or has like a soft summer color palette. Look at what this color does for me. It's shocking. It's just so good. I don't think any sweater looks as good on me as this one does. I've been thinking of like what I want to knit with this yarn in the future because I really want to use it again. And Sunless Garn doesn't have this color in like, I think any or hardly any of its other bases, and definitely not in like the Sunday or the birkin that is frequently used, so or that you can easily use for patterns. So I'll probably need to use the Koos again, but I don't yet know for what. I will be using it again though, because this pink is just scrumptious. It makes me so happy, and yeah, for sure my favorite knit of the year. It's amazing. Chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. If the frame looks a bit odd or different, that's because my camera just cut out and I had to reposition it. I'm sorry about that. But what I was saying is that the sizes in this pattern booklet aren't great. Like, one of the patterns is just one size, and this one comes in 3 sizes. So if you want to knit a more fitted garment and you have a smaller bust circumference, you're like basically unable to unless you grade the pattern for yourself or adjust your gauge. I knit the smallest size and it's still really oversized on me. I have a 90 centimeter bust, so if you have like an 80 centimeter bust, this will definitely be like really big on you. So that's a bummer, but that's honestly the only negative thing I can say about this pattern. The next thing I finished last year is my Birkin Polo tailor's version, which looks really bad right now because I haven't worn this since I went to my Taylor Swift concert in Amsterdam. I knit this because it looks exactly like a polo Taylor Swift wears in the Midnight's album photo shoot. I used the Birkin Polo pattern, which is a fitted 2x2 rib polo pattern with long sleeves, and I adjusted the stitch pattern to make it look like Taylor Swift's polo, and I knit short sleeves and, as you can see, an incredibly cropped body because I lost yarn chicken. Well, I didn't lose. It's just the sleeves are much shorter than I would want them to be, and so is the body. I also must say, if you plan on following my modifications, I always update my Ravelry in detail, and I have all of my project notes on there for this project. And I would suggest, if you follow my modifications, to actually add more increases to the body than I did. I either followed the pattern or doubled the decreases of the pattern. I think I must have written it down in my notes. You can kind of see it here. What you can also see is that the underarm is completely felted. We'll talk about that later. Ignore that for now. Thank you. But so the decreases, they look really cute with it's garter stitch and slip stitch pattern. I think it's 3 stitches of garter and then 1 slip stitch that I did. But yeah, the decreases look cute, but the garment is still pretty wide. Falls pretty wide because I did a stretchy bind off at the bottom. Wait, no, I didn't. I'm lying. I just did a regular bind off. So even with the regular bind off, it still falls pretty wide and isn't great for me. The double knitting here must have been a little off gauge too. I don't know, because it looks a bit small compared to some of the other projects that I've seen. I love that my modifications worked and that I was able to knit something that looks almost exactly like Taylor Swift's top and wear it to the Eras tour. I don't love that I lost yarn chicken and wasn't able to make it perfect, and that I am virtually unable to wear it now because the sleeves are too short to my liking. It's a bit hard to wear it with like the bottom being flary and the top being so cropped, but that's easily solvable with like very high-waisted jeans. The main reason I don't wear it now is because I use the recommended yarn, which is Gepard Garn Cotton Wool 3, which is a fingering weight 50-50 cotton and merino or cotton and wool blend. And I was dumb enough to use that and wear it to the Eras tour. So 3 hours of dancing and sweating and having fun on a hot summer day made this felting happen. And I am still super duper devastated about it. I washed it with conditioner and did manage to like stretch out the felting quite a bit, but yeah, some of the stitches are just irreparably damaged. On Instagram Reels, I saw someone soak like a very felted piece of fabric in cow's milk and then be able to fully stretch it out. I think because of like the fats and the proteins in the milk, I'm not sure, but I am curious to try that out on this felted sleeve to see whether I can manage to save or salvage this in any way. Oh, by the way, I used just a stockinette folded over hem for the sleeve details. I'm gonna really try and see if I can fix this still, but for now I've just left it at the bottom of my closet and kind of avoided it for a little bit because I love this modification and this pattern and the memories so much, but I don't know, I'm avoiding wearing it. Also kind of just like because imagine lifting your arm and just showing a felted mess. It's a bit sad, but I'm still incredibly proud of this project. Strongly recommend modifying this pattern. I think I'm gonna try and do it again, but better. I think I need to still kind of process the emotional events of felting the underarm, if you know what I mean. Probably don't. I'm just yapping, but whatever. Next garment. So my Birkin polo, Taylor's version, I finished in June. And that's the only finished object for June, I believe. And then this I knit in July, or finished in July, I should say. This is my blouse number 1 by My Favorite Things at Knitwear. It is a beautiful boat neck piece with a contiguous knit set in shoulder. You just increase ever so slightly on the side and then start the contiguous knitting for the sleeve. This guy is honestly the GOAT of 2024 summer knitting. Look at this drape. Look at the way this sleeve is just majestic. Look at the way this yarn blocked. I want another one of these. I can really imagine myself knitting another blouse number 1 in the spring or summertime because this is just amazing. The pattern calls for, I think, knitting for olive pure silk, holding that double on like 5 or 5.5 millimeter needles on like a big gauge. I ended up buying Sandnesgarn Tin Line, which is the thin version of their line, which it literally says in the name, Tin Line, thin linen. And it is a cotton viscose linen blend of yarn that just perfectly evens and flattens out when blocking. It is scrumptious. The drape is just so good. It's so airy and light and lovely to wear in the summer. I use the color Blue Hortensia or Blue Hydrangea. I was afraid that these Sandnesgarn, like the pinks and the blues that I used, were going to be a bit too bright for me. This looks so good. This color really suits me pretty well. I know a lot of people always say like I don't knit a lot of blue garments because I don't know what to wear them with and I don't like pairing them with jeans. Honestly, I pair this with blue jeans all the time and I think it looks really good and really cute, so I don't know what people are on about. I want another one in purple, in green, in white. I want one in every single color of the rainbow and I think everyone needs one. I knit it quite cropped and short, and I think that's fine. Also, she does nothing to stop the edges from rolling, and I feel like with the Knitting for Olive sample that the designer knit, the edges do roll a little bit, whereas with this yarn, even the boat neck edge, I blocked this aggressively and I pinned it down to make sure it would stay in place, but still, there's just no rolling whatsoever. I think I got sidetracked in my enthusiasm talking about this, but what I wanted to mention is that with this on this Sandnesgarn Line held double, which should have given me the same gauge as the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk held double, I did not get the same gauge. And I'm not the only one who seems to have experienced these issues with this garment. I ended up going down to a 4mm needle. I think it looks like I have a little less positive ease than I should with this garment, even though I knitted my suggested size. But when I measure this, the gauge is perfect. So I don't know what happened there, but I love the way this fits me, so I don't mind what happened there because it's perfect, it's great. Whenever it gets a bit too loose and floppy for my taste, I pop it in the laundry machine and it always comes out perfect and smelling great. I think Sandnesgarn Tin Line might be my favorite summer yarn up to now. I love it. It's so soft too, it's so comfortable, And like for the amount of cotton in there, it's really easy on your hands as well. Just such a fun, such a quick knit, such a great yarn. 10 out of 10, do recommend. This pattern was knit by everyone and their mother, but I understand why. For me, it's like almost on cumulus blouse level. I've seen a lot of people knitting this and then knitting multiple ones. Also people who don't usually knit multiples of something. The same goes for the cumulus blouse. I'm just gonna stop yapping and go on to the next thing because I could yap about this forever. Honestly, I love it so much. Oh, I knit a little swatch on the 5mm needles. If you're wondering what happened to this yarn makes the perfect cat toy, apparently. My cat never steals anything except for like when I'm knitting socks and the first sock I finished is on the couch, she's gonna steal it during the night and bring it to my bed as a gift. But apart from that, she never steals any of my knitting. She has her own ball of yarn to play with. She's the best behaved kitty in all the land. But this swatch, she stole it, she ran with it, she went with it, and I have one ball of yarn left that I had too many, and I'm gonna use that to knit my cat endless cat toys. As you can see, she loves this. You wanna see my cat? She's just sleeping below me. Hello. Say hi. Say hello. Say hello. I think she's gonna go back to sleep now. In July, I dabbled in crochet for a little bit, also for like the first successful time. I knit an Astrid pillow. I was so influenced by Amy from neknits, who knit an Astrid pillow with Sorella tonals and just a white acrylic yarn, and I ended up buying Holstgarn shade packs in the green and the purple colorways because you need 10 colors. Each shade pack has about 5 colors, so that came out perfectly, and I think these colors look so cute and so nice together. I didn't realize how much spinning oil was in this yarn, so I didn't block this yarn and these granny squares properly before knitting them together with some drops Lima that I had in a light gray. This is why it looks, in my opinion, just a tiny bit wonky, but like just the tiniest bit. Just the tiniest bit, but these lines aren't like perfectly straight in every little spot. The Astrid pillow is a pattern by Mallory Krell. I think I forgot to mention that. You basically knit one huge square of granny squares and then you fold it together, and then on this side I probably said like knit 20 times by now already when talking about this crochet project, but you basically crochet all of these little corners together around your pillow, and then you have just the cutest piece of home decor ever. I do think I didn't spread out my granny squares as perfectly as I should have or could have, because I have a dark side and a light side, but I also don't really mind that I have a darker side and a lighter side. I think it's really cute and it's just so soft and so sweet. And I do think that the yarn I used to knit everything together could have been an acrylic and not a drops Lima, because I feel like it's getting a bit floppy and a bit stretchy, but I'm also quite certain that it'll just get its shape back properly if I steam this. I did struggle finding a pillow that I could use to fit this in. This is an American pattern by an American designer, and apparently American pillow shapes and sizes are different from European or at least Belgian ones. So luckily I found a 2-pack of pillows that had the correct measurements on Amazon, and I just got that. And so I have a second pillow left over, but also I have yarn left over. So I got 2 of each color shade pack and I weighed all of the leftover yarn, and I think I might just have enough, or like maybe not. I'll be playing yarn chicken, but I'm crocheting up a second one of these. I've not made too much progress on it because I'm scared of losing yarn chicken, but I'm gonna try and finish it ASAP so that I can see whether I'll be able to crochet a second one of these. You'll see that whip in my second part of this video, I guess, with all the whips that I didn't finish. I think I have about like 25% of it done at this point in time. Great pattern, great for beginner crocheters, because like I made this. So cool. I'm so happy with this. It's just on my little couch or fauteuil in the living room, and I love it so much. The next thing I finished is an August finished object, and that is my top sole by Mochi Knits. It is just a very simple linen, 100% linen top with no finishings except for these little garter stitch edges on the side of the armhole, these slip stitches on the inside of the V-neck, and these cute little chain stitch crocheted ties. I have never worn this after finishing it because I knit this extremely off gauge and I was kind of delusional, thinking that it would be fine when evidently it wasn't. This is way too big. The armhole is much too deep. I also lost yarn chicken and knit it like way too cropped for my liking. The V-neck is too deep. You're supposed to be able to wear this just as is, as like a sort of fitted top. I cannot wear this as such, and the yarn I used is like pretty expensive and fancy. It's a chainette linen, 100% linen yarn. It's Camarose Löwtand organic linen or haru. I don't know. It's a pity because I was so excited for this garment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to frock this baby in its entirety. Oh, it's the color fennel or fennicle that I use. It's a pretty green. It's a bit warm for me, but I still think it's so cute. So I'm just gonna cut out these chains that I sewed in. I'm gonna frog the entire garment and I'm just gonna reknit it at a smaller gauge this summer and then hopefully get a ton of wear out of it in the future. And that's all I'm gonna say about that because I'm still quite devastated with how this flopped, but 2025 is going to be the year where I recover from this flop and where I actually reknit it and fix it and will be so happy. The next top I finished in August is the 9 p.m. tank, which is looking really tiny and child-sized, but so cute nonetheless. Again, I think I ran into some gauge issues. I think you can see it from how the fabric is bunching around the double knitting. It's just not looking good. I've not been able to wear this. I bound off too tight, my double knitting is too tight. There's so many things that went wrong with this pattern, and I thought I would be able to fix it because I used a superwash. I used Malabrigo Sock in the color Pearl, which is a 100% superwash wool or maybe even a merino. I did a folded hem, clearly folded it a bit too tightly. I'm not sure whether I want to reknit this or gift it to someone for who it's going to fit. Maybe before I do that, I should block it with my blocking mats and blocking pins at home and stretch it out like crazy because I haven't done that yet. I finished this on holiday and just blocked it outside in the sun. So maybe, just maybe, she says delusionally, I can fix this. And maybe we'll see this again in a future podcast when I have been able to fix it. Otherwise, I'll just have to gift it to someone who actually fits into it. This is nothing about the pattern. If you watch my podcast about this, I did really struggle with the pattern. I think all of that is a me problem and a gauge problem. I just don't entirely understand what happened or what I did wrong because I followed the pattern to a T. So yeah, it must be my gauge or my yarn or at least my double knitting gauge because like, look at how tight this is. Yowza. Flop, but I'm okay. I've recovered from it. I've accepted it. It's fine. The next thing I finished in September, and that was actually my first test knit of the year, and this is definitely the opposite of a flop, even though I have worn this, but the little non-woven in ends might suggest otherwise. This is the boat neck tank by my friend Maddie from True Summer Knits. She designed her first ever pattern and released it this summer, and it is stunning. I used just under 2 balls of Knitting for Olive merino in Dusty Aqua for this beauty. I knit it really cropped. It has nice little decreases on the sides and just a boat neck and I-cord edging everywhere. I really liked the Florence Miller mixed rib cami and I really wanted to knit that last summer, but given all of the gauge issues that I was encountering already that summer and the lack of brain power I had to deal with that, that, I just thought this would be the perfect alternative because it's also a boat neck tank top, but it doesn't have like the mixed rib with which a lot of things could have gone wrong for me, especially since I have a very different gauge when knitting flat and knitting in the round. So this was just perfect for me to satiate my need to knit the mixed rib cami because it has like the same trendy boat necky look. It's just an easy stockinette knit instead, which I love. I love how trendy boat necks were this summer. I was like not feeling it at first and thinking, oh, boat necks, not my jam, until I knit my blouse number 1, and now I am all over boat necks. I think they look so good on me because I have like pin straight shoulders. Now, the reason my ends are not woven in and that I said I've worn this before but not again is because I test knitted this and there was a little mistake in the pattern about the needles you needed to use to knit your I-cord. So at first I knit the I-cord using the wrong size. So the pattern said use the same needles as you were using for the body, but that was a little mistake that had crept in, and that's what test knitting is for, right? Someone caught it. Unfortunately, I was not that someone who caught it, and I was someone who knit it with the wrong size needles, and so I experienced some like flopping on the front, even though Maddie knit this, ensuring that there's like a certain technique that makes the front and the I-cord edge stay nice and flat and not curl because it is a stockinette and stockinette tends to do that. But so yeah, I did experience some curling, so I went in and I redid the I-cords, but I just did a whack job. There's some issues with my pickup rate. There's some issues with where I picked it up. Like here, I accidentally started the pickup of the neckline stitches at the front, which just looks horrible. I'm gonna be redoing that and picking up at the back instead of the front so that I can fix the look of that and fix any of the bunching I have right now. But I'm just gonna need to sit down like an afternoon in the spring and fix those I-cords, and then I can wear this one again and I will be so happy because it is so pretty. I love the color, I love the yarn. I love a merino knitted top, especially the knitting for olive merino. It's so fun to knit with, it's so lovely to wear. I can wear it all year round. I don't know. Chef's kiss for this one. Such a good pattern. Strongly recommend it. And yeah, that's that. The next knit I finished, I think I also finished in September. And that is actually something I cast on in like May of 2023. I just got sick of the slog that knitting this was. In September, I just decided, you know what? I'm sick of all of these summer knits, kind of semi-flopping. So let's just finish something that I know is gonna be good because it's a pattern by Handmade by Florence, and her patterns are always, I don't know, they just work so well for me. They're great. And so I just finished one that I had laying around, and that is my Sporty Knit Skort by Handmade by Florence. I did not end up knitting the shorts portion of the skort, so I just have a sporty knit skirt, but this pattern actually is supposed to have, or is written for, inset shorts, which makes it like a cute loungewear item. However, this yarn, when I finished the skirt, I put it on and it was just so itchy. I have never experienced a yarn this itchy in my life ever, even with socks, like even with nylons. This is so itchy to me. So I decided I would leave the shorts for what they were and just, I don't know, keep this a skirt. It has, I'm trying to find the back. It has short rows in the back. Oh, here you can see, which is great because I have wider hips and a bigger little bum, so that keeps it from being scandalous in the back or like too short. You just double fold a stockinette knit piece with a little purl ridge over an elastic that you measure, and then you knit this gorgeous ribbing with increases. This pattern is so simple but so effective. It's ingenious. I love this so much. It fits me perfectly. I used drop soft tweed, which Florence used herself for her second sample, and I just copycatted that because it looked perfect, and it really is perfect. I'm so glad I have this in my wardrobe. I think the color I used is called peppercorn. I guess the name comes from the tweedy bits that look like, I guess, just how black pepper looks when you grind it up a little bit. It's amazing. Alright, so my camera cut out when I was filming last, and we're a few days later now because it got really dark and it was a very busy week. In the meantime, I've managed to lose a nail and nearly grate part of my thumb into my risotto. So if you notice those things, no you didn't. And let's just continue on with the video. The next thing I finished was a campanula tee, which was a test knit for Cupid Knits. Stunning. I can't believe I made this with my own two hands. It is knit on 2.5mm needles with a sport weight yarn, which gives you this immaculate looking ribbing. Oh, it's just so good. The garment is entirely fitted and it has a saddle shoulder construction with set-in sleeves, or at least a set-in look. It looks so tailored when you're wearing it because of this. You have this gorgeous straight line going down. The garment is finished with these ruffle edges for which you use teeny tiny needles which hurt your hands, but it is so worth it. You also do it on the sleeves, and I should have done it on the body at the bottom as well. I regret not making this like cropped with a ruffled edge. Maybe in the future I could go back and do that, but I'm not sure if I have the patience. On the b-roll footage, you'll see that this fits me a tiny bit loosely around the arms. This has been changed after the test knit, so should you knit this, know that your sleeves will be more fitted as the pattern intends them to be. I used the recommended yarn, which is partially sponsored because of the test knit. Basic Garn Summer in Cashmere in the color Powder. This is a 90% cotton and 10% cashmere yarn. I think those were the percentages. And yeah, the color 3 or Powder just looks so beautifully dusty pink lilac-y in real life. It's like a great neutral. I must admit I haven't really worn this. I think by the time I finished it, because I started it in September and I think I finished it at the end of October, early November, and it kind of got a little bit too cool for me to wear it. I also wasn't wearing it to work because the heating is on pretty high at my job and I take the train for an hour and then I walk 15 minutes, so I fear I would overheat in this because the fabric is pretty dense due to the sport weight yarn. But I am excited to wear this a lot in the spring, and I don't necessarily fear any felting will be happening in the underarms because it is just a cotton garment. Surprisingly, the cotton and the yarn wasn't too hard on my hands, or at least not as I expected it to be. And the cashmere, even with just the slight amount that's in there, makes this insanely soft. Actually, this was a summer yarn that was just an absolute joy to knit with. I will for sure be using this again in the future, I think. The next thing I finished then is this huge scarf. I'll insert some b-roll where you'll really notice just how long I knit this thing. It's outrageous, really. I did not fully fathom, I guess, how much this would grow with blocking. You might know if you've knit a scarf before, you knit a scarf pretty wide to account for how much it's going to stretch and like lengthen and then get less wide, I guess. I trusted the process, or no, I did not trust the process. I didn't trust the process. It looked quite wide, looked a bit short, and then I blocked it and it turned out way too long. I ended up using a bit too much yarn. I think I could have done with like a full ball less, but yeah, that's I guess what I learned with this project. This is the Berlin scarf by Paula Stricht, who is a German designer, and she created this absolute stunner. It's knit on 7mm needles, just completely in the round, which makes this such a fun and quick knit. And then in the end, you knit things together to knit these double knit tassels. I started this last winter and then I just got a bit tired of it and it started getting too warm outside, so I knew that if I was gonna finish it, I wasn't going to be able to wear it immediately. So I just let it sit for a while, and then come fall, I knit the last little bit of length, which I didn't need, and added the tassels, and I was immediately able to wear it. So that was just such an exciting gratifying moment for me because I felt like I was, I don't know, not finishing too many things, casting on a lot of things. I had so many fall knitting plans. I still have so many of those whips, and just getting to finish this so quickly. Well, quickly. I had to really push myself through these tassels, you know, but it was nice. It was gratifying. It's a knit you can just wear all the time. It looks so cool with my trench coat in the fall. And yeah, I've just gotten a huge amount of use out of this so far. I used Kacha Komorebi, which is a yarn that includes, I think, some viscose, also some mohair, some wool. There's a lot of stuff going on with this yarn. It's like a very chunky boucle-ish yarn. Wait, I think I have a ball. Yeah, I have a ball lying over there. Just a sec. Yup. So here's some of my leftovers. Let me just show you this. Look at that. It's like, it's not really a boucle. It's not really a brushed yarn. I don't know how to describe it. It's just extremely, wait, it's not focusing. Oh, here you go. It's just extremely fun. And it's so soft. I adore it. I have some left. I bought like some extra balls because the first balls were gifted to me by a friend who knit a sweater with it and had like a ton left over. Love you, Joy. Thanks. Yeah, I bought some extra. I think I want to make like a hot water bottle cover with that. I think that would be so cozy and fluffy and cute. And I could just easily freehand that, I think, with like a 5mm needle to make it a bit more dense. Probably be doing that this winter. This Berlin scarf is just, it's so simple, it's so easy to style. I think everyone needs one. I've already bought yarn for like a second one. I'll probably end up knitting that next fall instead of this winter. Lilache! Allez, kom binnen. We've been blessed with Lila's presents. What are you doing? Hello. She's making me scratch her butt. Yeah. The next thing I finished is also an incredibly interesting piece. This is my Haru cardigan by Knits by Summer. I still haven't found buttons that I feel like completely match this yarn, so ignore that. I think to really show it to you properly, I'm gonna have to insert a lot of B-roll, but this is she. It's beautiful. It has this tiny cabling all over. It's knit on 4mm needles. It's a drop shoulder. You use German short rows to shape the back. It has a double knit button band, well, without buttons at this point for me. I used Holst Garn Super Soft, held with the Holst Garn Titicaca, which is the alpaca base. So it's like an alpaca lace weight to substitute a mohair if you want. It fluffs up really nicely, but I'm not sure if you can see, but I felted it just the tiniest bit. The colors I used are stunning though. I think I used Rose Heather. All of my info is always on Ravelry, so you can find that there. Hi. But so what happened is the Holstgarn Super Soft is very waxy. There's a lot of spinning oil in the yarn and you need to wash that out, right? And to do so, you just need to let that sit in a bath full of like dish soap or something that can get away a lot of grease. I was dumb and impatient and foolish, and I ended up rubbing my knit just the tiniest bit when trying to get out the spinning oil. And of course, in doing so, I kind of felted definitely the alpaca. I don't think I felted the Super Soft because it does still act very stretchy, so it might just be the alpaca, but still, it's kind of felted a little bit. It is, however, super soft now. The alpaca is itchy to me, but that's a me thing. The yarn is objectively really soft, so if you're not easily irritated by more rustic yarns, I would definitely recommend this yarn. Just don't rub it while you try to get out the spinning oil. Like me, the dumbest girl in all the land. Because I spent so much time knitting this. It's like not even funny. I had to do so rather quickly as well because it was a test knit. I don't know why I decided to do two such crazy small needle textured knits back to back. I guess I'm delusional sometimes, but yeah, I learned a lot from this process, and Summer is just a dear and so nice to test knit for. One thing I do have to say about this is that for me, the fit isn't really great. I have pin straight shoulders. And the shoulder slopes for this guy are like pretty deep, or like very much more so than I am used to in my other garments. So the neck tends to like ride up on my back, and the garment doesn't really sit right for me when I'm wearing it. I hope I might be able to fix that by adding buttons and like fixing the way it falls on my body, but for now I notice I don't really reach for the garment too much. One, because it doesn't have buttons. I don't also think it doesn't really have buttons because I haven't been too proactive in looking for buttons or finding buttons, because I am not 100% happy about the fit. So that's just a huge pity. I think in the future, if I knit patterns, or when I knit patterns by Summer, because she's a great designer, she makes beautiful pieces, the patterns are really well written, so I think I will be making like a haru sweater in the future, or a different one of her patterns, but I'll just try and see how I can adjust the shoulder slopes to make them fit my body a little bit better in the future. I thought I'd share that in case you have a similar build to mine, because you really don't want to be spending all of this time knitting on something super duper cabled and then realize it doesn't fit you perfectly. But still, this is just something I'm so insanely proud of. I love the color, I love the pattern, it's gorgeous. And also, this stitch is so addictive. I couldn't stop. Like, by the time I finished my second sleeve and it was time to get into the ribbing, I was almost sad that it was over. So I really feel like I want to knit a haru sweater in the future, because I love this cable stitch pattern. It's so good. Now then, in December, I also knit a few little ornaments. They're a bit dusty because they've been hanging on my tree. Look at these two little cuties. I forgot what the pattern is called, but I'll add the information on the screen. This is, I think, a free pattern, and I spent, I don't know, like little over an hour knitting up these two guys. I used some drops Nord. It was so fun, so quick, and I'll definitely be adding more to my tree next year. And like, if I knit a few every year, in a while my tree is just gonna be full of these adorable little candles. It's so cute. I could also use them to make like a little garland. Yeah. Strongly recommend these ornaments to everyone who likes knitting ornaments. They're so fun, they're so cute. I just stuffed them full of scrap yarn as well, which is a great use of that, honestly. And yeah, these are my little Christmas ornaments. Gonna put them away until next year now. Speaking of Christmas ornaments, I also knit a December bow by Petite Knit. It's been a hot minute since I knit a Petite Knit pattern, but this one is just so cute. I ended up holding Drops Nord double in the color red. Look at that! I knit it a bit shorter than it's supposed to be according to the pattern, and so a bit smaller because I was losing yarn chicken essentially, but I think it's really cute. Yeah, I'm very proud of how this turned out. You fold this in a pretty ingenious way, and then it looks like this in the back, which is, I don't know, I find it a bit silly that something can look like this in the front and then looks like this in the back. But yeah, it's really pretty. You have all of these folds, both on the bottom and like around the bow itself, which just makes this look so polished and finished. I'm a huge fan of this guy. I'd love to knit many more in future years, and it was just lovely to have this hanging on my bookshelf next to the Christmas tree during the holidays. It does fall a bit less daintily and prettily than other December bows I've seen people knit up who use like a fingering weight and some mohair, but nevertheless, it's really cute. And I didn't do the absolute best job, so it like tilts forward a little bit. I don't know if you can see it, but like this, so you can like see the back. But if I hang it high enough, you can't see that. So that's great. And I don't mind. And yeah, this pattern, so cute. You add like a little double knit band over here. Yeah, so good. I loved that. It was fun. Now the last thing I finished, I ended up finishing on Christmas Eve. No, not Christmas Eve, on Christmas Day while watching The Holiday with my mom. These are the I'm Ecstatic socks by Cool Stitches. I knit these for my partner, but I was so terribly off gauge that they don't fit him. They actually ended up fitting me and they're still a little bit snug. They're a bit too long, but that's okay. I do feel like the Grinch a little bit when I'm walking around and it like sticks out at my toes. It's like an all over cabled sock pattern. You use a DK weight yarn. I think the reason I'm off gauge, I've worn these a little bit already, so they did get a little bit of wear. But I think the reason I'm off gauge is because the pattern calls for like a fingering weight and a mohair, and I use Sunless Garn Perfect, which is a DK weight sock yarn, superwash, and yeah, it's just a lot more dense than I expected it to be. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, it's so pretty. It ended up perfect. I ordered more yarn to knit my partner his pair, and then we can be matchy-matchy, and I'll knit a size too large, of course, so that they'll definitely fit him. But if you have some DK weight sock yarn or just some fingering and a mohair left over in like a fun color or a good neutral, these are really the perfect winter socks. You have a shadow wrap heel. I must make sure to show you the right one because I have one side where I didn't follow the pattern correctly and I made some terrible mistakes. This looks good. It's like a short row type heel and it fits quite well. Not as good as a gusset and heel flap, but I think it's fine, and it was just so much quicker to knit up. So if you want like a quick and easy sock project, I really think this guy is the way to go. And if you prefer a gusset and a heel flap, I'm sure you can just quite easily modify this pattern. I think I will do so for my partner because he really prefers that fit. So I'll knit a second pair with a gusset and a heel flap very soon and report back to you in my knitting podcast. Now, I think that was everything I knit last year. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Thank you very much for sticking through this video with me. I hope to see you in my second part where I talk through all of the whips that I took with me into the new year. And now Lila and I will leave you to continue watching YouTube or knit or do whatever other hopefully very fun thing you have planned. I wish you all the best in terms of just your life, but mostly your knitting in the new year. I hope all your projects end up amazing and all of the yarn you buy looks exactly as you imagined the color to be and not warmer or cooler than it looked in pictures. Thanks for giving me all this love that I've been receiving over the past year. I'm so excited to make more videos and put them out, even with losing nails in the process. Thanks for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!